On April 26, 2016, the naked body of 19-year-old Nadine Wanless was discovered in a remote wooded area just outside of Newport Richey, Florida. Once a beautiful and talented young woman, Nadine had dreamed of becoming a Hollywood actress. However, life's challenges derailed her aspirations. Now, her family and friends were devastated to learn that her life had been tragically cut short in such a horrific manner. Nadine Wanless was born in Newport Richey, Florida, to a working-class family. Her father, Daryl, 37, worked as an auto mechanic at a friend's repair shop, while her mother, Nancy, 36, was a waitress at one of the town's oldest family-owned restaurants. From a young age, Nadine knew she wanted a different life from her parents, who had started having children when they were barely more than kids themselves. She believed her only way out of Newport Richey was through her dream of becoming a Hollywood actress. She envisioned herself walking the red carpet, starring in blockbuster films, delivering powerful performances that captivated audiences and earning widespread acclaim, all while living a glamorous life in the heart of the entertainment industry. At 18, fresh out of high school, Nadine moved to Hollywood, California, determined to make her dream a reality. She knew breaking into acting wouldn't be easy and that living in Hollywood would be expensive. However, she hadn't anticipated just how quickly she would burn through her savings from her part-time, waitressing job at the same restaurant where her mother worked, or how difficult it would be to gain traction in the entertainment industry. Nadine found a job as a waitress at a neighborhood diner in Hollywood, but it barely helped her make ends meet. Things took a turn for the worse when her father died after a long battle with lung cancer, the result of smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. Now, she had no choice but to return home to Newport Richey. As the oldest daughter, she needed to help her mother financially and take care of her 4 younger sisters. To support her mother and younger sisters, 19-year-old Nadine took a job as a stripper performing under the stage name Blondie at a popular gentleman's club. She was a natural blonde with strikingly beautiful face and an enviable figure of ample curves, long legs, and large breasts that made men stare. Whenever she stepped onto the stage and bared herself completely, the crowd erupted in thunderous applause. The admiration she had once dreamed of as a Hollywood actress had finally come, not in the form of movie fans, but through the whistles, cheers, and hungry gazes of men mesmerized by every curve, by every inch of her stark naked body. As she moved her body in a sexually suggestive manner, lifting her legs and spreading them wide, she felt the weight of their lustful attention fixed on the intimate view now fully exposed between her legs. The rush was unexpected but undeniable, an intoxicating high that she found herself craving. However, Nadine told herself she would only strip. She would never go beyond that. Men frequently approached her with propositions for sex, whispering in detail what they wanted to do to her luscious body, how they would make her scream with pleasure. Each time, she turned them down, vowing never to sleep with any of the men at the club, until she met Wilder. Nadine was most tempted by Wilder Marwood, a 42-year-old man who exuded power and confidence. Handsome and well-built, he captivated her more than anyone else. He stirred her desires intensely, and she often daydreamed about what it would feel to be held naked in his strong, pulsing arms. Wilder never missed her performances, always ensuring he had a private moment with her afterward. Each night, he persistently asked her to go home with him. That night, however, they never even made it to his place. Instead, they had sex in his car. Moans echoed from within, audible to anyone nearby, though the car's tinted windows shielded them from prying eyes. Otherwise, any passerby would have seen a fully nude Nadine, wearing nothing but her stiletto heels, in a far more sexually compromising position than anything seen during her performances on stage. Wilder was equally exposed, clad only in his socks. If the police had been called for their public indecency, could it have prevented Nadine's murder in the weeks to come? Wilder was unlike anyone Nadine had ever met. He bewitched her, aroused her, and completely possessed her. Just thinking about their first night of passion sent shivers of desire through her body, making her breasts throb with need and her inner thighs tremble with burning anticipation. She longed for his touch, yearning for the moment his lips would once again explore every inch of her body, uncovering its every secret with hungry desire. That desire soon became reality, and before long, their bodies were entangled in passionate, steamy encounters each day, exactly what she had been aching for. Everything seemed to be going perfectly for her, or so she thought. But stories like Nadine's rarely end well. Girls like her often meet tragic, and sometimes bloody, fates. Nadine's death was discovered by Tate Lanier, a hiker who stumbled upon her naked body while walking through the woods. Tate immediately called 911. Soon after, detectives Luke Fletcher and Oliver Kirkland arrived at the scene. The area was cordoned off, and the investigators began their work. The body exhibited no signs of struggle or violence, except for a small puncture mark that the detectives noted on the inside of her right arm. The initial autopsy of the body showed no signs of sexual or physical abuse and did not appear to be a drug overdose. But Dr. Bonnie Chopra, the medical examiner, was perplexed to find one odd thing. The body had been drained almost entirely of all blood. This blood loss had caused Nadine's death and also explained the puncture mark found on her arm. Nadine had definitely been murdered and her body had been dumped in the woods, but detectives Fletcher and Kirkland were at a loss to explain why or how Nadine had died in this manner. Who could have done this and why? Wilder Marwood, 42, was a well-liked and highly respected sex therapist in Newport Richey. Known for his charisma and dedication, he had built a strong reputation for being available whenever his patients needed him. His wife, Tempest, 38, was also a highly respected sex therapist. Together, they were a dynamic duo, attractive, intelligent, and the life of every party. Beneath the surface of their seemingly respectable lives, however, lay a dark secret. They were vampires. Not in the supernatural sense. There were no fangs or aversion to sunlight, but in their belief that drinking human blood granted them special qualities and advantages over others. To indulge this belief, they established a ritualistic cult known as the Nocturnus Coven, a secretive group devoted to their vampiric philosophy. The road to Wilder and Tempest's transformation into cult leaders was a long and twisted one. From the beginning of their marriage, they had embraced an unconventional lifestyle, practiced open marriage, and freely engaged in sexual relationships with other people. Over time, their non-monogamous lifestyle evolved from dating other people separately to forming connections with others who practiced open marriage. Eventually, they established a swinger, or wife-swapping, group where couples would regularly exchange partners for sexual pleasure and excitement. Their home became a clandestine hotspot for the local swinger community, hosting gatherings that grew increasingly hedonistic. As the parties escalated, drugs and alcohol became staples. Wilder and Tempest, always at the center of the action, provided an array of substances: marijuana, cocaine, LSD, and most notably MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy or the love drug. Through it all, the couple remained the ringleaders, orchestrating the group's activities and ensuring their home was the epicenter of pleasure, indulgence, and eventually, something far darker. While the get-togethers were initially started for pleasure, under the Marwoods' control, they gradually took a darker turn. Wilder and Tempest began dabbling in the occult, incorporating bizarre rituals into the group's meetings. Over time, their wife-swapping parties evolved into carefully orchestrated mass orgies, with the Marwoods at the helm. By the winter of 2015, these gatherings had become routine. Participants first undressed and sat naked around a pentagram, while the Marwoods, also naked, presided over the ceremonies. Under their guidance, members engaged in blood-sharing rituals, drug use, and ultimately, orgies. Through a potent combination of drugs, sex, charisma, psychological manipulation, and blood consumption, they cultivated a devoted following. They promised their followers supernatural powers and even immortality, luring in those who were vulnerable and seeking a deeper purpose. Psychological tactics reinforced their dominance, fostering emotional and spiritual dependence among their followers. Wilder and Tempest were not merely charismatic leaders. They were dangerously manipulative and controlling. They established an environment where conformity was absolute, dictating every aspect of their followers' lives. Their practices were not only unconventional, but increasingly perilous. By the summer of 2016, the stage was set for a tragic turn of events, one that would ultimately culminate in the murder of Nadine Wanless. When Nadine Wanless's naked body was discovered in the woods near Newport Richey, Florida, detectives Luke Fletcher and Oliver Kirkland launched a thorough investigation. The crime scene was deep in a secluded area, surrounded by towering pine trees and dense palmetto scrub. It was evident that whoever had left her there had gone to great lengths to transport her body. Adding to the mystery, forensic analysis revealed that Nadine had been almost entirely drained of blood. Detectives Fletcher and Kirkland quickly realized this was no ordinary murder. It was something far more disturbing. At the scene, the detectives uncovered a series of strange symbols carved into the surrounding pine trees. Seeking answers, they consulted experts on occult practices, who identified the markings as part of ritualistic ceremonies, symbols often used to signify significant events or individuals. Within this chilling discovery, detectives Fletcher and Kirkland turned their focus to Nadine's life, retracing her final days in search of clues that might explain how she became the victim of such a gruesome crime. At 19, Nadine worked as a stripper at a popular gentleman's club. It was there that she first crossed paths with Wilder Marwood. With his chiseled features and well-built physique, Wilder quickly captivated Nadine, drawing her into his world. Before long, she was completely under his spell, willing to do anything he asked of her. In the days leading up to her death, Nadine quit her job at the club and moved out of her mother's house to live with Wilder. However, she wasn't just moving in with him, she was also moving in with his wife, Tempest. Wilder and Tempest had a sinister motive for taking Nadine into their home. For some time, their group had engaged in ritualistic bloodletting and drinking, sharing small amounts of blood amongst themselves. But now Wilder and Tempest believed it was time to take their practices to a new level. They had convinced themselves that in order to gain greater powers, they needed a human sacrifice. And they had already chosen their victim, Nadine Wanless. Meanwhile, as detectives Fletcher and Kirkland worked to piece together the circumstances surrounding Nadine's death, they interviewed her friends and family, hoping to uncover crucial details about her final days. That break came when they spoke to Nadine's friend Ashlyn Dalton, 21, known as Paris in the adult entertainment industry. Ashlyn and Nadine had met while working at the Gentleman's Club and had developed a close friendship. Ashlyn recounted watching her friend fall deeper under Wilder Marwood's influence. Nadine had shared glimpses of her new life with Wilder and Tempest, but mostly she talked about Wilder. She told Ashlyn about the group's ritualistic orgies and drug use, experiences Nadine described as exciting, an endless party of sex and excess. But more than anything, she raved about Wilder. Nadine screamed with delight as she talked about her passionate sex life with him, how he made her feel every time he ravished her body, and how he was unlike anybody she had ever been with. She spoke of him with an almost hypnotic obsession, completely besotted by him, as if under his spell. Nadine had even tried to persuade Ashlyn to join the group, but Ashlyn wanted no part of it. And now, as she shared what she knew with the detectives, they realized they were dealing with something far more twisted than they had initially imagined. This revelation was entirely new to detectives Fletcher and Kirkland, who had never heard of Wilder or Tempest Marwood, or the Nocturnus Coven. The investigation into Nadine Wanless's murder had now evolved beyond simply solving a crime. It had become an effort to expose the dark and dangerous world of the Nocturnus Coven. The evidence gathered so far pointed to a chilling conclusion. Nadine had been sacrificed as part of the cult's ritualistic practices. After a thorough investigation, the police finally gathered enough evidence to arrest Wilder and Tempest Marwood. Early on the morning of September 2nd, 2016, armed with search and arrest warrants, police officers raided the Marwood home. What they discovered there shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Drugs and drug paraphernalia were found in every room of the house. Videos documenting many of the coven's rituals, including orgies, were also discovered. In the garage, police found a freezer containing various animal heads and genitals, apparently used in the coven's rituals. But the most disturbing discovery was inside the Marwood's refrigerator, which was packed with containers of human blood. DNA analysis later revealed that some of the blood belonged to Nadine Wanless. Wilder and Tempest were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and multiple drug possession offenses. The charges were based on evidence linking them to Nadine's death, including the ritualistic symbols found at the crime scene, the testimony of Nadine's friend Ashlyn Dalton, and the damning discoveries made during the police raid. The Marwoods' arrest marked the beginning of the end for the Nocturnist Coven. Evidence recovered from their home allowed police to identify and bring in other members of the cult for questioning. As the once secretive group began to unravel, authorities offered immunity or reduced sentences to members willing to testify against the Marwoods. Soon, prosecutors had everything they needed to bring the couple to trial for the murder of Nadine Wanless. On February 6, 2017, the trial of Wilder and Tempest Marwood began at the West Pasco Judicial Center in Newport Richey. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Veronica Clements, presented its case first, laying out the evidence against the Marwoods. District Attorney Clements showed disturbing footage from secret cult gatherings, including clips of the coven's rituals and ceremonies, meant to remain hidden from the public. This footage was a crucial part of the prosecution's case, as it demonstrated the cult's extreme practices and its connection to Nadine's murder. The prosecution argued that as the leaders of the cult, Wilder and Tempest had orchestrated Nadine's murder as part of the group's ritualistic practices. They presented testimony from former cult members who had witnessed the murder firsthand. These witnesses stated that, under the influence of drugs and the Marwoods' manipulation, Nadine had willingly agreed to be drained of her blood, believing that her death would grant her immortality. Wilder and Tempest's defense team, led by attorney Forrest Addington, argued that the evidence against them was circumstantial and that they were being framed by disgruntled former cult members. The defense claimed that the footage and symbols had been taken out of context and that there was no direct proof linking the Marwoods to Nadine's murder. While acknowledging that the group engaged in bizarre activities, the defense insisted it was not a dangerous cult, but merely an unconventional group that indulged in sex parties. They also admitted that the Marwoods partook in drinking blood, but argued that it had always come from willing, living members of the group. According to the defense, Nadine had been a consenting participant, and the blood found in the Marwoods' refrigerator had been supplied by her while she was still alive. Furthermore, the defense sought to discredit the former cult members who testified, suggesting they were the true perpetrators of Nadine's murder and had their own motives for accusing Wilder and Tempest. Throughout the trial, emotional testimony from Nadine's family added a deeply personal and heartbreaking dimension to the case. Her loved ones spoke about the pain of losing Nadine and the devastating impact her death had on their lives. They described her as a loving daughter, sister, and friend, someone full of excitement for her future before her tragic end. Their testimony helped paint Nadine as the innocent victim of a cruel and manipulative cult. The courtroom drama was intense, with both sides presenting their arguments and evidence. The jurors listened carefully, weighing the testimonies and examining the evidence. After 3 weeks of trial, the jury retired to deliberate. Finally, on February 27, 2017, after extensive deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Wilder and Tempest Marwood were both found guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and drug possession. The verdict was met with a mixture of relief and sorrow by Nadine's family and the community. The leaders of the Nocturnist Coven had finally been held accountable for their actions, but nothing could ever bring Nadine back. In the aftermath of the trial, Wilder and Tempest were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentencing marked the end of a painful chapter for Nadine's family and the beginning of a healing process for the community, which could finally move forward after the horrifying revelations of the cult's activities. Hey, Interested in more real-life murder mysteries? Be sure to like our content and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories. Do you have any thoughts about this case or have a case of your own you'd like us to investigate? Leave us a comment. Until then, stay safe. After Wilder and Tempest Marwood were sentenced to life in prison, the community of Newport Richey, Florida, experienced a mix of relief and sadness. Nadine Wanless's family was grateful that justice had been served, yet they continued to struggle with the deep pain of her loss. The trial had been a long and painful journey for them, but seeing the Marwoods held accountable provided some measure of closure. Following the conviction, Nadine's family became dedicated advocates for others affected by similar situations. Alongside Ashland Alten, they worked closely with support groups and law enforcement to improve resources for individuals trying to escape cults. They also focused on providing better support for families dealing with the aftermath of such tragedies. Today, they continue to share their story courageously, hoping to help others who might be in similar danger. The case had a profound impact on the community of Newport Richey. Many were shaken by the revelation that such a dangerous group had been operating in their midst. In response, schools and community centers organized meetings to discuss safety, vigilance, and the importance of looking out for one another. Efforts were also made to support the victims' families through mental health and counseling services. The murder of Nadine Wanless highlighted the hidden dangers of cults, how they can manipulate and control vulnerable individuals and operate undetected within any community. Her tragic story, along with the Marwood's trial, served as a stark reminder of the risks posed by such groups. This case underscored the need for ongoing education and awareness to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. The lessons learned from this and other cult-related cases became a catalyst for societal change, influencing how communities and law enforcement address the threat of cults. These efforts continue to inform initiatives designed to protect individuals and communities from manipulative and dangerous groups, ensuring that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. As always, true crime. The untold stories will continue to uncover the most gripping and unsettling cases, offering a window into the darkest corners of human nature.